Time to get into the kayak fishing world, and guess what? They're taking you along for the ride. So buckle in and welcome to Paddle and Fin.
Welcome to Paddle and Fin. I'm Scott.
And I'm Brian.
And tonight's episode is going to be epic, of course, because tonight we're going to talk TourneyX. We're going to talk what you've been up to, bro. We're going to talk a little bit of Delavan bluegilling. And, yeah, this is awesome, dude. It's good to be back.
The most important thing is the epic return of the Godfather. Just saying. Saying.
What's funny is I haven't done a pod since, I don't know, January. And what's awesome about this is my disdain for my voice is still epically high.
Yeah, I think, when was the last pod you were on? Was it the Listener Roundtable?
It was the Listener Roundtable,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like it was like forever ago. But it's only been a few months.
You guys have been doing awesome. You guys have just been cranking them out. And, I mean, listenership's way up. This is awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. I know, after the Listener Roundtable, things kind of blew up. You know, a lot of guys shared that. A lot of their friends and followers listened. And it's kind of expanded from there. I know not only that, but, you know, we had some pretty epic guests on.
Oh, yeah. You had some real deal guests.
Yeah, like Drew Gregory, J.D. DeRosier.
Alex Fulgaria, whatever.
Alex Fulgaria, Richie Lockery from Moyak. I mean, yeah, it was great. And
so, interesting stat. When I at the last pod we did, I think the listens were around 3,600 total. And they're like well over 10,000 now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
You guys have done such a great job.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think it's almost 11,000 now.
Really?
Yeah, I looked earlier today, so it's like 11,000 downloads, which is kind of nuts because, you know, we always talked about, like, I remember when we got to 50.
Oh, I know.
And then 100.
I know.
And then 1,000.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, man, we just hit 2,000.
But you remember, like, when we talked about it, it was like, you know, the first 1,000 took forever.
Yeah.
And then we always talked, like, once the next, like, 10,000, up to 10,000 would be a shorter haul.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. No doubt. I mean.
And you guys blew it out. Like, it came quick.
Yeah. I think we just reached 10,000, like.
A month and a half ago?
No. Like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 or 3 weeks ago. And now it's at, like. I think it's at like 10.7, 10.8, something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's crazy, man. Yeah, it's blowing up, and I don't know if actually, yeah, I was on the phone with you that day.
You were
when I was at the river, and the guy was like, "Hey, man, you're like one of those paddle and fin dudes, right?" You know? And we talked. Me and Jay talked about that on an episode, and Jay's like, "Yeah, you're Rockford famous." I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that, but. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I just love the listener feedback, and you know, just.
Well, you guys have been doing a lot too with the listeners. Like you've been fishing down in Tennessee.
Yeah, bouncing around. You know, we gave away that kayak to Todd Phillips.
Yep.
You know, doing the seminar. Yeah, just trying to do all kinds of stuff to just help grow. You know, like our main goal was like when we started this was to, you know, grow the kayak fishing community, help guys learn from our mistakes we made and stuff like that. And it's interesting when you hear feedback from somebody that's like, hey man, just found the pod. And, you know, I was going to do this and I listened to this episode and, you know, thanks for giving me that like heads up or warning or, you know, kind of help guide me in a certain direction. So it's been really cool to hear that. And I know like, you know, you and I always talk, you know, kind of behind the scenes and obviously, you know, you haven't been on the pod, but you've, you know, like I always say, you pull Jay strings from behind the scenes.
Well, we should probably address that. Jay's going nowhere, right? I mean, he's still the co-host. This is just Jay wasn't available tonight, so I'm Brian had asked me to fill in, so
Yeah, Jay's
I figured I'd destroy and remove a few listens while I'm at it.
Jay's son's birthday is today, so
Nice.
he was taking him out to dinner and stuff. So
We love you, Jay.
Yeah, he texted me this morning. He's like, "Hey, man, I fished all weekend, which we'll get into in a second, but he was like, hey, we should have probably recorded the pod yesterday. Like, I'm tied up tonight. I don't know if I'm going to have time." I was like, you know what? Let me text Scott, because we had been talking about, getting you back on and stuff. And I think I mentioned that on the last pod. We were just waiting for you to get out on the water and things like that. And I was like, I'll text Scott. I'll be like,
There's been a lot going on with setting up the Paddle and Fin World headquarters.
yeah.
As
And
you can tell.
I can tell you right now, we are currently in the worldwide headquarters, and it is looking beautiful. We got on the water tonight.
We did. It got rained on.
Yeah, it was pretty epic.
That was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, I'm glad this all worked out. So yeah, we figured you would host tonight.
I'm like a substitute teacher.
Yeah. You're gonna host tonight, and I'm just gonna be the guest, I guess, and kind of go from there. It's kind of weird being on that side of it, I think, but
well, there's a lot going on, man, and I think I'm not alone in saying that your tournament season just started. So what I want to do is, especially on tonight's pod, is really talk through how can the listeners follow you.
Sure.
How can all that kind of good stuff. So as we walk through this, the first things first, let's talk about, I guess, the past few weeks.
Yeah.
I think you guys have already talked about the Banner Marsh, and I mean, you had an 8th place finish there, etc. But the most recent that you haven't talked about is this KBL, the St. Chris Lake.
Yeah. So St. Chris was supposed to be last Sunday.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up at the Banner Marsh tournament, because when I was heading down to pre-fish, like the group chat started blowing up, and there was talk about weather and safety concerns, because there were supposed to be 20, 30 mile an hour winds, like 40 degree, like I think the day was supposed to start out at like 31 or 32 degrees and then drop, rain snow mix all day. So it was just a safety thing. So in the KBL, it's written in their rules that if events canceled due to unknown circumstances, this being the weather, that the tournament automatically goes to an online event the following weekend, and you can fish public water only. It's Saturday and Sunday only, so you get 2 days to fish, so that way it makes it flexible for guys. And it was kind of hard for a lot of guys this weekend because of Easter.
Yeah.
So, a lot of guys only fish Saturday. Some guys did Easter on Saturday, so they only fish Sunday. It was a grind. I mean,
so you can fish any body of water you want as long as it's in Illinois? Is that how that works?
For that one, I think it is any body of water in Illinois.
Because you did the Kish, right?
Well, I actually went back down to Banner Marsh Saturday with Jacob Ruff and another gentleman from the KBL met us down there, Christopher Dotson, who fished KBL last year as well. He ended up meeting us down there. But my thought going into it was I caught some quality fish down there. I didn't figure the fish out till, halfway through the tournament. But the fish I did catch were solid fish. And I know there was some really nice fish, like 20s. I think big fish was like 21 and a half.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's some tanks in there. So I was just like, yeah, I should go back there. Because up here, up north, the water temps are still cold.
Right.
And so my plan was to go back down there, which I did. And I actually fished out of a different boat this weekend. I forgot about that. I fished, I took the Old Town Predator demo boat from Rocktown out.
So you got to pause right there, and you got to give a little review. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I basically it was more for I'm going to do a little like review on that boat for the YouTube channel. But I wanted to see what all this craze was about these pedal drives. And I'll tell you right now, I hated it because it made me realize how fat and out of shape I was. Like, I mean, my abs and my thighs were on fire.
And that was just getting out of the dock.
Yeah. That was like in the first 10 minutes. And then, the whole rest of the day. But, no, that boat, so I demoed that when I demoed my Bonafide. I've mentioned that before. It's a fast boat. The pedal drive's fast. It's like super torquey. But I think my problem was I was like just trying to huff it the whole time when I was moving. Whereas if I would have just
relaxed,
slow, steady pedal,
steady pace,
I wouldn't have like been just like wanting to have a heart attack.
Right.
But the boat's stable.
Did you stand up in it at all?
Oh yeah, I stood up in
and it was no problem.
Yeah, because I was actually sight fishing some of the day. I actually saw a male locked on bed, pitched to him for probably a half hour, couldn't get him to go. And I stood up a ton in that, went to the back, went to the front hatch because I threw some lures and stuff up in the front hatch, turned around in my black pack, no issues, didn't feel like I was going to fall over. The one thing I will say is the rudder thing is nice where it flops down and then you can prop it up out of the water.
Yeah.
But as far as turning goes, like you had to lean into the turn to like really get it to go or turn. Otherwise it really lagged.
Interesting. And that's one of those flop over rudders, right?
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
real. I'm going to say it's thin.
Yeah. But it's long, but it's thin.
Right.
It's probably 4 inches wide or something. So that was the one thing, like the turning. I did not like the exercise aspect of it. But, so it was cool. Like, I wanted to do like a little review video about it because I've talked about that boat before. I was kind of interested in that boat, back in the day. But not only that, I knew I wanted to cover a bunch of water, and I knew there was going to be a decent amount of wind that day. So I figured, why not, pedal drive. But I will say, like, I don't think it was, like, extremely fast. I could probably almost paddle the same thing. And, like, it's a different amount of exertion, paddling versus pedaling. I don't know. To me, it just seemed like paddling was way easier, but it's probably because that pedal drive is just like it's a rare territory for me, so to speak.
Well, and I think too, the nature of it is you want to you're in a pedal drive that is torquey and fast, so you want to cruise.
Yeah, right.
That's going to burn you out. Yeah. Like you said, I bet if you just relaxed and went slow, and you'd have a much better experience.
Yeah, no, totally. But yeah, I'll have a video up. It'll probably be this weekend sometime.
Well, they're one of the only makers that has a built-in. They were one of the first to come out with that Minn Kota Predator, which is a different boat altogether.
Yeah.
But it just has that built-in.
Yeah, trolling
they're
motor
on clearance
thing.
now, but yeah.
Yeah. I actually saw one of those up at. I think it was Canoecopia. I saw that boat. Might have been Wisconsin Fishing Show, but I saw that. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Basically the trolling motor head just comes right out of the bottom of the pod.
Interesting.
But so I ended up catching 3 really nice fish at Banner, and I just couldn't get my other 2.
Yeah.
And I think in the morning, first thing, I was like in first place, and I was like, okay, this day is starting off pretty good.
Yeah.
If I can keep this going, and it was like a light switch. It just shut off.
Yeah.
Couldn't get another bite. I think we spent 9.5 hours on the water.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what am I going to do? Like, I got 18 people coming to my house tomorrow.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to fish.
How long of a ride is that down in Banner Marsh?
3 hours from my place.
Okay.
So it's not horrible, but I mean,
it's a good haul though.
When you're going 3 hours down and fishing 9.5 hours, and then driving 3 hours back home.
Yeah.
But Jacob Ruff rode with me, and apologies to Jacob. I overslept a little bit, and yeah.
Sounds like an inside story.
Yeah, it'll be on the video. Jacob shot a little clip out in front of my house. Like, yeah, Brian was supposed to meet me at the launch at this ride share. I was supposed to meet him at like, I think it was 3:15, and he pulled up in front of my house about 4:10.
Wow.
Yeah. So, oops.
So you wound up getting back to the St. Chris event. You wound up taking 10th.
Well, yeah, so I caught 3 fish at Banner, and then I came home. I went out for 2.5 hours Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Before I had to have guests come over, I went to Rock Cut and didn't get a single bite.
Unbelievable.
Then I came home, did the family thing, the dinner, had the guests.
Went out to the Kish.
And then I went to the Kish, and it was like bottom of the 9th, bases loaded. 2 outs. All I needed was two 12-inch fish.
Let me start here. Let me just start here because I know a little bit about this. So I was out fishing on the Fox, just fly fishing, checking out spots, and I texted you and said, and you said you just knuckled down and you're getting to the Kish.
Yeah.
And you said you needed 2 fish. That was the text I got.
Yeah.
I want to say it was 10 minutes later. Da-ding, da-ding, my phone's going off, and there's 2 pictures of 2 small ones.
Yeah.
So how'd you get them?
Yeah, so, I've been putting in some work on the Kish there in a few different areas, scoping it out. So I'm going to help out, do some, like, guided fishing trips with Rocktown.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been, scoping out certain areas, and Chris Dotson, who met up with us at Banner, I fished with him Sunday morning, and then that night I was like, hey man, I'm going to go to the river. I need 2 12-inch fish to put me in like 10th or something.
Right.
And at that point he had 0. He didn't catch any fish at Banner. And I'm like, man, I'd love for you to come, get you on the board, And we launched. I hit this laydown right on a seam, and I thought I snagged the laydown, and it started fighting back, and it was like a 13.5 fish.
That's awesome.
And then he came behind me, and he pulled a 15.5 out of there.
Really?
So then we're both like taking pictures of the fish, getting them uploaded. I paddled back up, and I hit another seam right behind that one, and I caught it. It was like exactly 12. I had to like pinch the tail, like get it like positioned perfectly. It just crossed that 12-inch mark. And that's when I texted you, and I was like, well, I got my 2 fish. It was like 10 minutes, and I was like, seriously, dude, I could have came here this morning and like done this. And like, because I was in full panic mode. And like, and I talked about it briefly on the last pod, like after the Banner Marsh thing, it was like, all I wanted was a top 10 finish, because that's the thing. Like, everything I got going on this season, I didn't want to like put up a goose egg or something and then like eyebrows are like flared. Like, what is this kid thinking? Know? So, I think I was in like 16th place when I went out Sunday night. And then those 2 fish bumped me up into 11th. And then I like upgraded 3 times. So that 12-inch went to like 12 3/4. Gotcha. I caught a bunch of fish, but they were all in that small
But it shows
range.
what a difference even like a 1/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch makes.
Right. And so that put me in 10th. I finished in 10th. I did lose a giant right at the end of the night. And was it a smallmouth? I'm pretty sure it was. It could have been a pike, but where I caught it, I'm pretty sure it was a smallmouth.
We'll talk a little bit about, so you're looking for the laydowns and stuff. We have been talking a little bit about kind of what strategy are you using for that? Like you kind of took that from another species, right?
Yeah, so, we talked about that because, last year we talked about it on the pod. Like, we both wanted to explore rivers,
right?
Right. It's something I did as a kid, but I did it a lot when I trout and salmon, fly fished. And reading water is so crucial, and I've been running through my mind on how to put a YouTube video together to like kind of help teach guys how to read water.
Yeah.
And you know, I can explain it if I have the river in front of us, and I can show you certain things to look for. So I just got to figure out how to do that in my editing end of things. But you know, I'm just big thing is like current seams behind.
But specifically, what
stuff.
species were you talking about? You're kind of taking from to search for smallies and do your river fishing.
Oh, it was definitely trout.
Trout.
Yeah, trout.
Interesting.
And that was the thing. Like we had that conversation after I got done fishing that night, and I was like, you know, man, I've been really applying like my trout fishing strategies to smallmouth fishing, and whereas before it was like I was thinking like largemouth fishing,
right?
Like slow moving pools,
Structure.
just hitting all the structure I could, and you know, a lot of times there are some smallmouth there,
Sure.
but if you move, smallmouth love that current just like a trout, and they sit on those seams because they can sit on that slack side in the lazy water, not have to work.
The food comes to them.
And the food comes to them, and they just shift over, grab it, and then move back to the lazy section. And that's exactly what a trout does. And since I started implying that, like, things have dramatically changed. Not only that, but dialing some baits in for the kish, you know. I don't want to give too much of that away, but yeah, that was definitely the go-to thing.
It becomes just another like tool in your toolkit, right? Like when you're on that kind of water, like okay, I can hit the structure, but you know, let's look for these seams first. Let's look for eddies, all that kind of good stuff.
Well, and I think part of it too is I fished the river a lot this winter.
Yeah,
like 20-degree days, which was just stupid.
Yeah,
you know, so I was looking for all that slack water. Now that it's warming up, those fish have moved back, and they're really feeding, getting ready to spawn, and things like that. So, that just applying that strategy Sunday saved my life. Like, not saved my life, but like saved my tournament.
No, right.
You know, and I think when I texted you right before I got on the water, I was like, this is about the only time you'll hear me ask the fish gods for 2 12-inch dinks. You know, like, that's all I needed. And yeah, so it worked out, man. Super happy. So
where are you at right now with the St. Chris event? You finished 10th. Banner March was 8th. What was the other one? There was another one too.
The March KBF monthly challenge, I finished 6th.
Okay.
So I got 3 top 10 finishes so far. So yeah, we just need to get like those top 5s, you know? But you know, and that's the thing. Like, I'm pretty sure me and you have talked about it. I know Jay and I have talked about it extensively. Like, I'm totally satisfied with a top 10 finish without like taking home a paycheck. Like, you know, if I can stay in that top 10, that's all I really care about. Right. You know, if it's 100-person plus tournament, like top 20 all day.
No, right.
You know, I just want to be in that like top 20%.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But yeah, it's been an interesting start to the season. Just want to keep the momentum going, and then, you know, build it up a little bit more.
So what's the KBL Online Midwest best? Is that different than the monthly?
Yeah, so KBL does, if you're in Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, I think it is. Yeah. They do an online tournament. Okay. It's kind of like the monthly challenge through KBF, but it's 2 weekends a month, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I believe it is, which this past weekend was one of those weekends, and then next weekend is the other one, and then that completes the April one. But you sign up, I think it's $30, and I believe it's like top 3 get paid out or something like that, or maybe it's top 10%, but there's 50 some guys in it this month, and it's open not only to the club but the general public. You could fish it. You just got to fish public water, and it's largemouth, smallmouth.
Interesting.
And that coincided with this weekend's tournament, so I think that one I'm sitting in 12th or something right now. Yeah. But I'm not going to be able to fish next weekend. So I'll probably get bumped down a little further.
That brings us to our next topic, which is what's coming on the docket here. So we got the KBF actually, you're doing 2 KBF tournaments coming up here.
Yeah, so I announced on last week's pod that I signed up for the Pro Tour, the KBF Pro Tour. That was just a personal decision I came to. There's been a lot of hearsay about it, just because it's like an added buy-in type thing this year. But, from everything that Chad Hoover's described about it, it's the direction I want to go with, like, my fishing path. So I decided it was probably part of my better interest to do so. Yeah, it's more money. It is what it is. But it's just another step in the right direction for me, personally, I guess. So all the Pro Tour stops coincide with the Trail Series stops. Doesn't matter what region you're in. Obviously, I'm doing Central. And the Central's a little goofed up this year. Like, I think right now for just the Trail Series stop, there's only like 28 guys signed up. And that's because it's so far away. A lot of the guys that are signed up are Kansas, Missouri. I think there's one guy from Colorado, a guy from Nebraska.
For the Central?
Yeah, for the Central.
Wow.
Because Colorado got lumped in with like California, Arizona, and all that stuff because they don't have a ton of people up that way.
Right.
So, but for all the guys up north here, it's a long haul down to Kansas. And I think there's 28 guys signed up for the Trail Series event, but there's 4 of us signed up for the Pro Series. And per what the rules are written, you need a minimum of 3. So the Pro Series stop is a go. Because I know one of the first California stops, there was only 2 guys signed up. So they got their money refunded because they didn't have enough guys.
Right.
So, I leave day after the pod releases Wednesday, driving to Kansas, get there Wednesday evening, pre-fish Thursday, Friday, tournament Saturday.
So, as a guy who hasn't fished a tournament, per se, what is that Saturday morning like? Like, how does the process go?
So, it's kind of funny, man. Like, so Saturday morning, there's a captain's meeting for this particular tournament. They're doing it the morning of. I believe it's at 5 a.m. I'd have to go back and look. It's either like 5 or 5:15 a.m. And there's captain's meetings. Basically, they go over all the rules and everything. And, just simple guidelines, basically reiterating what you should have already read. But that way a guy can't, have the excuse of, oh, I didn't know that. Right. So you go through that, and then earliest launch time is 6 a.m. and earliest lines in the water is 6 a.m.
Okay.
So everybody launches at 6. There's 2 launch options, and then lines out are by 2, I believe.
How does it work, though, with, like, you get limited space at the launch, so do they have a pecking order? Or?
They'll let you stage your boats, like, down at the launch. Okay. So, like, you could drop your boat in, put it to the shore. You just can't be, like, sitting in it, floating off, basically. You have to basically have your boat sitting there. Like, at Great Lakes, a bunch of us lined our boats up on the shore, and then when it was time, legal time to take off, we just dumped in and went. So it looks like those launches there are pretty big. Plus, there's some shoreline there where guys can dock their boats, have them ready to go.
Guys are standing next to their boat waiting for the...
Yeah, pretty much waiting for, the green light to be able to go and take off.
Now, some guys have motors, some guys have
paddles. Some guys have pedals.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Bonafide's getting an upgrade tomorrow. So,
well, have you talked about this already on the podcast?
Yeah. I don't know if I did or not.
You should mention it.
I think I did. Yeah, I'm putting a trolling motor on the Bonafide.
Hey,
as big of as
hey, welcome.
Yeah,
welcome.
Well, you know me, like I've always been that paddle snob, right? Like, screw the paddles. Skip over the motors.
Welcome.
But here's the one thing. It's funny, like, after I really sat down and thought about it, because I was just like, I was just such a paddle purist.
Sure.
But from a fishing tournament standpoint, and especially after fishing these couple of tournaments, like, I think it was Chad Hoover that said it, or maybe it was Alan Wiedemeyer, from the tournament director from KBL, because he's on the Torpedo team. He's got a Torpedo. So does Chad Hoover. And they may have both said this, but kayak fishermen are fishermen first.
Right.
Kayakers second.
Right.
Which I was kind of opposite. I was like kayaker first and fisherman second. I mean, I've always been a fisherman,
right.
But like when I got into the kayak fishing, like I just dug it because I was in a kayak.
Right.
But it makes sense, especially from a tournament standpoint. Like, you can cover more water. You're not exerting a ton of energy and things like that. And granted, I'm not going with like this big 55-pound thrust trolling motor. I just picked up a 30-pound.
Watch it. Watch yourself.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
But I just got a 30-pound thrust Minn Kota. It's supposed to make my boat do like, I think it's like 3.5, 4 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. It's not too much, but it's going to do justice.
Yeah.
And I'll do a YouTube video on that as I'm rigging everything up, because I'm kind of taking from a few different ideas that I saw and compiling them into one.
Yep.
But it's going to be on the super cheap. Like, I'm not getting like this, couple $100 mount or anything.
But the
like
coolest thing I liked about it was you had mentioned the Bonafide's kind of already rigged for the pedals to do the steering, which is going to be killer.
Well, and they knew they were going to make a rudder for the Bonafide, so that's part of the reason why it's rigged up that way. But they also knew the tournament guys were going to throw torpedoes in there. Right. So that was another reason why. So,
dude, you're going to love it, dude, especially for, the kayak becomes a tool.
Yeah,
right. To get to the fish,
and that's just it, So I'm not like making up excuses for myself, but when I really sat down and thought about it, it's like I'm at the disadvantage paddling. As much as I love to paddle, and I'm still going to have to paddle anyways.
Oh, sure.
The trolling motor is just going to get me from point A to point B.
Did you get the short little paddle that?
No, I didn't get the little.
I did. I finally picked it up.
Did you?
I did.
Well, I'm going to keep my paddle because I'm just going to go from point A to point B. When I get there, I'm going to use my paddle to maneuver me around and kind of get around. And then no fish, go from point B to point C.
Yep.
And that's what it's going to be utilized for. And the main thing is the tournament after Kansas. So after I get done in Kansas, I leave there and I go straight to Tennessee. And I'll be fishing the FLW KBF Open, which is on Nickajack Lake, and that's basically a reservoir on the Tennessee River, but it's huge. So, like, I could legit put like 12 miles on it in a day.
Right.
Easy.
What kind of battery are you going with, dude? Are you going?
I haven't picked that up yet.
Okay.
I got to pick that up tomorrow, but
and not brand wise, but just like gas tank wise, right?
Yeah, so
because you can spend as much as you want on those as well, which is pretty ridiculous,
right? Like, it was funny because Jay and I had talked about that, and to get a big deep cycle type marine battery to run a trolling motor in a lithium ion is like $1,500.
Oh no, it's ridiculous.
It's like insane. But it weighs like nothing.
An eighth.
Yeah. Right. So that's the thing. I mean, granted, the Bonafide can handle some weight. So, and if I'm not paddling that weight, however, I know the more weight I add, it kind of makes that boat a little tipsy with any boat.
You know what you ought to do is, I got the big honkin' marine battery in that Newport Vessels case that I got. You ought to take my battery and just try it out and see how long you can run it, that kind of stuff, and see what makes sense. Because if you can get away with a smaller deep cycle marine battery, the better off you'll be.
Well, see, and I had the thought, too, is I got 2 of those really big deep cycle batteries.
Oh, you do? Okay.
In the trailer.
Oh.
And when the trailer's plugged in, it charges those batteries.
Oh, yeah.
So I had the thought of possibly using one of those. Which will last me forever, especially with that 30-pound thrust.
Sure,
it's going to draw like little to no power.
Sure.
But now you're talking about adding 65, 70 pounds of weight.
No, without
which
a doubt.
is a ton.
Without a doubt.
When you're talking a kayak.
What is the weight limit on the Bonafide? Do you know?
I want to say it's like 400, 450.
Is it 400, 450? Okay.
So, you figure I'm like 250. Yeah, the battery, I'm at like 310.
Right.
Then my fishing gear, that's another like 40.
Right.
So I'm like on that threshold.
Plus the trolling motor.
Yeah.
Which is another, probably 20 or 30.
Yeah. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I got to figure that out.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to have to be a smaller deep cycle battery, which I know I had a smaller deep cycle battery when I had my Sylvan, and I had a 45-pound thrust bow mount on there, and I could run that thing for a day and a half and never run out of juice.
Right.
So I think I'll be all right with a smaller deep cycle battery, and then down the road, maybe, get a W or something, take that money and upgrade the battery or something, So
are you gonna get one of those cases that has like USB plugins and stuff?
I don't know if
probably don't need it for tournament fishing.
Yeah,
but
well, the nice thing is so I've been thinking about rigging up some USB ports on my pod where my fish finder is.
So you use your fish finder batteries for that?
Yeah. So that way I could charge my phone if I needed to, which you need your phone for the tournament.
You do, for pictures and stuff.
So, I mean, I always charge my phone to the full, and I don't unplug it till, like, I'm getting ready to go.
Yeah.
So,
but you've seen, like, the case I have, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it makes it so easy. You just hook up the battery leads, and now you've got USB, you've got a, what is that, the 12,
cigarette lighter.
Cigarette lighter dealio.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting. All the steering's going to be in the pedals.
That's going to be sweet.
So, yeah, it'll be kind of hands-free for the most part. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
By the way, I watched a video on taking the head off your trolling motor, and it doesn't seem that bad.
I don't think it is.
I think there's 2 wires, a red and a black. That's it.
Red and a black, and then the 2 for forward and reverse is what I saw
All
today.
2 leads?
Yeah.
Got it.
So.
All right.
Yeah, I saw a few things, too.
But anyway, I just want to make this painfully clear welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome, my friend. I knew it would just take a matter of time.
Well, like I said, tournament situation. And that's the thing. Like,
you're turning red right now.
Yeah,
I wish people could see this.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, now it's like that my 127 is going to be, like, totally set up for, like, tournaments only.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to take that out hardly ever. Which is fine because, I got other Bonafides in the garage, and I've been paddling the 11.7 quite a bit in the past few days. Yeah. And I'm really loving that.
So let's stop there. We'll get back to, because we want to talk more about TourneyX and the stuff you're doing. But since you mentioned the 11.7, today we went out.
Yeah.
And we shot down to the dam, not too far from the condo, and there was a guy in a Lund.
Yeah.
Slamming bass, like using bluegill bait, but like just crushing bass.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
and for those that don't know, like bass season is closed right now in Wisconsin, and we figure we go out for some panfish, and if bass decided to bite the bait, not our fault. They're getting released right away. So
apparently they're not up on the DNR, but
those damn bass,
Yeah. So then we get down there, and I'm in the new canoe. You're in your 11.7.
Yeah.
Literally, we had a triple right out of the gate.
Yeah.
We're using, like, butterworms?
Yeah.
And, like...
I had the 2-inch twister tail on.
Right.
I
had a butterworm on a jig with a bobber.
Yeah.
It was just gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the dude in the lawn hooked up, or did I hook up first?
Crawlers, I think, or something.
I think I hooked up first.
Yeah.
And my drag was screaming because I had it set too low because I had my ultralight. Because you're like, oh, let's go try catching some bluegill and crappie, And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll just bring the ultralight. And I always catch them on twister tails, so I tied that up, and this thing's peel and drag, and then I hear the guy in the Lund be like,
it's a monster.
Yeah, I got a toad on. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got a fish too. So we were all 3 battling fish at the same time.
I looked at you. You had a fish on. I looked at him. He had a fish on. And I look out, my bobber's just vanished. It's just gone. And I'm like, yeah, here we go.
Yeah. I mean, it was only, I think my bass was like maybe 13 inches or something.
Right.
I
It's all
didn't have
ultralight. It was fun.
I didn't pack my bump board because I wasn't like planning on
Weren't going
catching
for bass,
bass,
right.
So, but I would say it was probably like a 13-inch fish,
But the reason I bring it up is a storm rolled in, and we had to paddle back in fairly quick.
Yeah.
But then you let me take that 11.7 out. I got to tell you, man, like it looks identical to your boat from an untrained guy. I know the deck's a little different.
Sure.
But what's interesting about it is you let me paddle that thing, and I stood in it and I paddled it, and I mean it cuts through that water, man.
Yeah.
It's easy paddle
For
sure.
For a budget boat, it tracks like extremely well, and not only the fact that it's a budget boat, but the fact that it's a shorter boat. It's an 11.7, but it tracks like a 12 or a 13-foot boat.
And it was fairly stable. I mean, I stood up in it, and it was no big deal.
Yeah, I think the only complaint I had about it initially when I got it was like the first time I took it out when we were down in Tennessee, and I didn't spend a ton of time in it. Like I stood up in it just like you did, and I kind of rocked back and forth a little bit, and I noticed some water coming up through the scuppers, and it's probably, again, because I love cheeseburgers and I'm a bigger guy. And but as soon as like I repositioned or sat down, that water drains like in a blink of an eye. And that's something that JD talked about when we had him on the pod, and I was telling you after you got off, I'm like, because I use that in the river for the St. Chris makeup event,
right? And
like paddling upstream was a dream. Like that thing it's perfect riverboat, and that's why I bought it. And I know JD's taking it through some like class 3 rapids, and he's like, dude, this thing handles like a whitewater kayak.
Right.
So I was super excited about that, and just spending some more actual quality time in it. It's quite impressive.
I was super impressed, dude. Super impressed. What was interesting too was because you were standing fishing, you were sight fishing, to some extent as well. And I mean, if you wouldn't have told me, I wouldn't have even thought it wasn't your
127. Yeah.
I really wouldn't have.
Yeah, the side profile like is pretty much identical. Like the only thing that's different is the back end, and the sides aren't as tall, or the gunwale walls aren't as tall as a 127, I think. And it sits a little lower in the water than the 127, but I tell you what, man, like I'm thoroughly impressed with it. And that was the thing I was telling you is, JD got rid of his 127 because he fishes mostly rivers.
Interesting.
And I will say, because I've taken my 127 in the river I was in.
And there's a decided
fishing.
Difference. Have you taken the 127 on the river?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I've taken the 127 out there several times before.
Okay.
And then taking this 11.7, I'll never take my 127 in another river again. Unless it's like a bigger open river like the Fox, and I'm running my trolling motor to get upstream or something. Yeah. Something which I have a tournament on the Mississippi this summer. So, yeah, it's super impressive.
I do that boat. It's an awesome boat. Did you ever take out the Flint?
Did I take out the Flint?
So I'm curious how that paddles. I'm guessing that thing's going to be like left and right.
I don't think I have, but
I don't know.
I've had extensive conversations with the guys at the shop. And
what do they say?
And Travis has spent a lot of time in it. Super fast boat. Paddles easy.
Okay.
But he's never spent time in the 11.7 because that's a newer boat. So he can't really compare the two. Yeah. But he said it is a little bit more on the tipsy side.
I would imagine.
Because it's a not as wide of a boat.
Because I'm trying to put together, the 11.7's the bona fide sort of entry level.
Yeah.
The Flint would be the new canoe entry level, and then Jackson has the
bite.
The
bite, yeah. That's new this year.
Have you paddled that one?
No, I've only seen it on. First time I saw it up close and personal was Madison Fishing Show.
Okay.
And it was in the Rutabaga booth, and actually Ethan was sitting in the seat And I was like, so what do you think, man? He's like, the seat is kind of not that
right,
comfortable.
huh?
Well, it's just not comfortable but I think we figured it out. Like the mesh that's on the seat wasn't tightened up, so he was feeling the back bar.
Oh, right.
So we tightened it up, and it got a little better. But it's a bare bones boat.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the way New Canoe is too. It's bare bones, so you can customize it to what you want. But I think you have more flexibility with the New Canoe with all the gear track running there compared to the Jackson. But that's just my personal opinion. I know Jay's like gonna listen to this and be like, what the but I mean, that's just my opinion, and I've told that to Jay before. But I mean, I think regardless, you talk about the New Canoe Flint, the Bonafide RS 11.7, the Jackson Bite, what the heck else is out there that's in that price point. There's a bunch of manufacturers that are coming out with boats in that like $1,000, $800 to $1,000 range. Right. I think you really can't go wrong with any of them.
No, right. Right.
It's all going to be a personal preference, like we always say. It's like what I like, what you like, and what whoever likes is going to be three different things.
No, sure. Sure.
It's just all a matter of what features are going to suit you the best. But did I tell you? No. There was a listener who bought an 11.7 from Rocktown, and then his dad bought a Bite, and I'm forgetting his name right now, so I apologize, dude. But I talked to his dad for a bit, and he really liked the Bite, liked the price point on it, things like that. So I'm curious to hear what he thought about that. But I know down at Rocktown, they've already sold quite a few Bites. They've sold, obviously, a ton of Flints, because the Flint's been out for, 2 years, 3 years?
It's been out for a while.
And they keep selling out of the 11.7s.
Interesting.
But, from the paddle shop point of view, it's like you have all these boats in the same price range. So it's kind of hard. They're all competing with each other. Right. And they're all very similar. So, from a retail standpoint, like, how many of which do you stock? Because one month it could be all the Bonafide guys coming in buying their 11.7s.
Right.
Next month it's a bunch of New Canoe, or a bunch of people come in by the New Canoe, but then they just stocked up on 20 11.7s.
Well, and
so it's hard to judge, but and I see the frustration because I know, I'm using Rocktown as an example, but I know they're not the only ones.
Right.
Like I've talked to other paddle shops where it's like, we don't know what to keep in stock because they're, all the same.
Well, and that's all like, it's getting worse than that even in the low end.
Yeah.
Like I think I told you, I was at Fleet Farm and I see the new Pelican anglers, like they're selling them for $699, $700.
Yep.
And then you see a really similar boat like Ozark Trail at like Walmart, but it's like a full-fledged fishing kayak.
Yeah.
It's not like you're sitting side with a couple rod holders.
Sure.
Like it's got like crazy feet, and it's wide, and I'm thinking like it's a great time to be a consumer in this sport because no matter what your budget is, even if you're not going to go with one of the, for lack of a better term, like legit,
full-on fishing
kayaks, you could still get into a decent boat, for like $499.
And that's the thing, like it doesn't matter what boat you're in. As long as you're getting out on the water, that's all that matters.
Dude, I still remember we talked about it when we first started the podcast, going out in that sit-inside Pelican you bought.
Oh yeah, I still got that.
And I remember jumping in that thing going, this is awesome. You can fish out of anything. I mean, that's the moral of the story.
I've had so many people fish out of that thing, and actually that boat, like, I'm looking to give away. So if somebody knows somebody that wants a small, cheap fishing kayak to get into it, contact me. I'm obviously traveling a ton this year. So even if you're in another state, you're not in Illinois, let me know. I'll throw it in the trailer, and I will deliver it to you.
Nice.
So, and that was part of this whole motion that, we started putting forward, just growing the kayak fishing community and giving Todd Phillips that boat. So I still have that boat. So if anybody knows anybody, I'd like to see it go to a good home.
That's awesome.
Maybe a young teenage kid or something that wants to get into it. So, but yeah, I mean, And what really made it like hit home, I think, for me, you know, going back to like the cheapo sit inside was Dusty Yacker. You know, that kid has been so successful, and he started in that boat.
Right.
He talked about how he like felt all nervous being in that like cheap
and
kayak.
Everyone's in
Hobies and Jacksons and this and that, and then
Yep.
the kid crushed it. You know,
Right.
and that's the thing, man. Like, you know, even this past weekend, fishing when I was over at Olson Lake in Rock Cut, there was some guy in a little sit-in. I didn't catch any fish that day, and we were talking at the ramp, and I'm like, "Did you catch any?" He's like, "Yeah, I got like 7." I'm like, "Dude, like what the heck, man?"
Right.
I mean, and that's the thing I've always said. You know, the fish don't care about what boat you're in; it's what lure you're dangling in front of their face.
So we went out on Saturday, and my brother-in-law brought his nitro up. So
Yeah.
we went out bluegill fishing and
Yeah,
crappie
yeah.
fishing. And we were literally, there was a bunch of boats at the south end of the lake, just about 7 foot.
Yeah.
Set your bobber and jig and whatever
Sure.
you're using, waxies or whatever, about 3-4 feet, and just pound them. And we weren't really pounding them.
Yeah,
And the boat next to us
was hammering them.
crippling them. It was like doubles all day long. And I'm looking over, and it's like this old boat. You know, it's
Yeah.
got nothing to
Right.
do with what
Right.
you're fishing. It's
Right.
what you're doing.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
all about the fishermen. You
it
know?
is. It is.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of fished blind Sunday because I didn't take my 127 out, and that was part of the reason why I had the Predator over the weekend, was just because I got the boat tore apart so I could do this whole trolling motor thing. So like I didn't have a depth finder or anything. I fished Olson before last fall.
Have you ever had a really good luck there, or not really?
I've had some decent days there.
Okay.
I know I paddled way up into the creek, and there was a ton of bluegill up there. I saw a couple short bass.
Okay.
Saw catfish up there, but never hooked into anything. So, but the water temps were still cold because I know Chris had met me out there, and he talked to one of the guys, and I think the water temps were still like 50 degrees. So in reality, I should have been like tossing a jerk bait or
Sure,
something,
sure,
you know,
sure.
and I
Yeah.
obviously didn't bring jerk bait. So
Well, we've talked about a lot on this episode, and we're kind of coming to the end here. But we got to cover something that, I mean, it's been top of mind for me, is how do we follow you on TourneyX? Like, it sounds like I'm to the point where I know exactly, you know, where to go. The problem is there's so many different tournaments, so many. How do listeners actually follow you on TourneyX?
yeah, so we kind of ran through that, you and I, but I thought it was a great idea too, because if you've never been on TourneyX, it's kind of hard to follow.
It's ridiculous.
Just because there's so many leagues, right, and organizations running tournaments through TourneyX. So if you open TourneyX, you'll have a drop-down menu or a menu bar in the top right-hand corner. Click that, go to the Tourney site, and you'll see a listing of all the clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Right up top is Kayak Bass Fishing, or KBF. You can click KBF Trail Series, and obviously any of the Central Division Trail Series, I'll be fishing those. You can fish KBF Pro Tour, any of the Central Division Pro Tours, I'll be in those. There is a tab for the FLW KBF events.
Yep.
So you can follow that as well. The KBF monthly tab, or I think it's listed as KBF Challenge Series.
I think that's where I got stumbled.
Yeah.
Was like there's so many different KBF
Yeah.
slash
Yeah, so there's the
FLW and
the-
Trail Series, and
The KBF Challenge Series is for like the monthly state challenges, and then like they do some oddball ones too. Like I know there's one coming up the weekend I'm in Kansas where it's like the nightly thing or something where you fish all night instead of during the day. That's a thing. They do some goofy challenges, online challenges where you just fish any public body of water, things like that. And then if you scroll down, they separate a lot of clubs by states. So if you get down to Illinois club, all the Illinois clubs, kayak bass leagues in there, they do a monthly challenge like I mentioned before. Their live events they usually don't do on TourneyX. They usually just do it all there, so they don't have to pay the TourneyX fees and all that stuff. It saves a little bit more money for the prize pool. But the makeup event was on TourneyX just because we weren't all meeting at the same place, so you could see like the results and the standings and stuff there too.
So for listeners, it would be really helpful. It sounds like you're going to post on Instagram, or for those that follow on Instagram, kind of what you're going into this weekend, and then they can basically find it on TourneyX.
Yeah, I think I'm going to post links, for the results boards
that'd be
or
good.
like the leaderboard.
It'd be fun to watch watch that because it updates live, right?
Yeah, like when I fished the Great Lakes series division, like my wife's like, well, how do I watch you? And or is there a way like I can monitor like how you're doing? And I shot her the link, and like I remember at one point I was in third in that tournament, and she was like, yeah, just keep going, like you got this. And then I lost that giant, or that was after I lost a giant, and that was, again, I only caught 3 fish that day, but half the field skunked that tournament.
No, right?
Yeah, and a lot of good sticks skunked that tournament.
Interesting.
Jay and I talked about that last podcast, but yeah, it's kind of cool because I know I watch, like when the national championship was going on, I was watching. A lot of people were watching, like who was doing what. And it's fun to kind of watch how like positions change and things like that. So yeah, it's cool, like a nice little cool way to follow along. I know yesterday, because Jacob went with me Saturday, and on the way home, obviously we got 3 hours to talk, and I'm like, dude, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like all I need is 2 more fish, and like I don't know if I'm going to find 2 good fish. And then like it ended up being I only needed 2 12s to make that top 10. And I told him I was going out in the morning, and then he texted me, I think it was like 11, 12, and he was like, happy Easter, man. Like, are you on the water? And I'm like, I was already out, didn't get any fish. He's like, you going to get out later? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, well, I'll be watching. And then
That's
like
cool.
He saw those 2 fish get posted, and he's like, yeah, like, so it's kind of cool, man. And same thing with Jay, like I know he's doing some Great Lakes events, some other ones this year.
If you guys could post it on Instagram,
yeah,
I think that'd be key.
Yeah. So and we were gonna try doing like an events calendar on the website.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But like I say, 3 YouTube videos a week, podcasts, all that stuff. So tournaments, fishing.
Well, Jay's not here. You can sign him up for that.
Yeah. Hey, Jay. Jason. Yeah, no, I'll have a lot of downtime in the evenings while I'm on the road.
I think just posting where you're going to be, and people can find it on TourneyX on their own. They don't need a direct link. They'll figure it out.
So, yeah, no,
that's cool.
We're gonna do it because there's gonna be some meetups coming up, things like that. So, yeah, it'll be fun.
Now you're just to button this episode, since you're officially a first-time guest on the pod.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna put you in the hot seat, bro.
Oh, we haven't done one of these in a hot minute.
See, I'm telling you.
I'm loving the epic return of the Godfather. I knew there was a reason why this happened this evening. That's awesome.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Butterworm or waxies?
Waxy. I've never used a butterworm.
Okay.
Till tonight, and it didn't do any good.
All right, ready? Rooster tail. Right? Rooster tail.
Rooster tail like a Meps.
Yep.
Okay.
Rooster tail or your twisty tail grubs?
Twister tail grubs, just because I know Jay's a Meps man, and I just
that's why
I don't want to go the same way as Jay.
All right, ready? It's getting harder. It's getting harder, man. It's called the hot seat for a reason.
All right. It is getting a little warm.
Delavan or Geneva?
Oh man, that is a hard question.
Mm-hmm. Watch what you say.
I've never really spent that much time on Delavan, and I've spent hours upon hours upon hours on Geneva. But I will say this, like I was super impressed today, and some of the fish I saw swimming around, I'm even more impressed. And it's funny, like, I know these two lakes always compete with each other because they're so close to one another. But I'm actually going to say Delavan for the reason of it's a little bit smaller. It's not as crazy hectic in the summer as Geneva is. I mean, my heart's always going to be with Geneva, but I think, like, this lake, and especially some of the information that's come out about it, like through the DNR that we were talking about, and the fishery in general, like, I think I'm going to spend a lot of time on this lake.
You know what's funny
year.
is we were paddling out to the dam. It's a short paddle.
Yeah.
I don't think you stopped talking the whole time. You're like, 18-incher.
Yeah.
20-incher.
Yeah. You didn't have glasses on. You didn't have sunglasses on. And I always got my Costas on. And, and that's what we talked about when we got back. I'm like, dude, had you had your glasses on, your head would have been on a swivel. Like, I'm just, like, looking through the water, and I'm like, oh, there's fish, there's a fish. I mean, from the time we got in the water to the time, like, we got back.
We didn't even paddle out of the dock.
No.
You were like, there's 2 bass in there.
Yeah, and they were like 16s, and I was like, holy, And I know I saw a very healthy fish, probably female, getting ready. And,
Yeah.
They're moving up. They're getting ready. It's getting close to that time, but I don't think the water temps are quite there yet.
By the way, that was a great answer on the hot seat because you are sitting at the Paddle and Fin World Headquarters, so that might have weighed on your decision a little bit. But.
Yeah.
All right, ready? Here's another one: Fox River or Kishwaukee?
Kish.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is that because you know it better, or you haven't fished the Fox much?
There's some stretches of the Fox I want to fish. Jay, I'm still waiting for those GPS coordinates from the first time you were on the podcast. But Kish is smaller. It's a little bit, I'd say not necessarily remote, but yeah, kind of like it's a little off the beaten path. And it's just a smaller stretch of water. Like, I fish a lot of small streams in southwest Wisconsin and stuff, and like I really dig the small bodies of water and finding big fish in those smaller bodies of water. I got nothing against the Fox, but Kish is just something I've been fishing a ton of. I fished the Fox a ton as a kid, but I don't know. Kish is just.
All right, this last one is meant for you and your co-host that is not here currently.
Oh boy!
So the Bonafide 107 or the Jackson Bite?
Oh.
You got where I'm going with that one,
Yeah.
You got to make a choice, man. It's in the hot seat for nothing.
I'm going to say Bonafide 107.
I figured you would.
Just because better seat, better storage options, just better options overall.
Is the Bite a 10-foot? Or is that an 11?
I think it's 11.
Oh, okay.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's 11, maybe 11 and a half. The 107's 10 foot 7 inches. I would almost bet that the Bite probably tracks a little better than the 107.
Because it's longer, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's my biggest complaint about the 107 is the tracking on it. It's not
well, that's
great,
why I asked.
but
I knew you didn't dig it.
It's a short boat, and but I mean, it is what it is. It's a great little small lake pond boat,
right?
But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Eric has that another 10-footers that topwater.
Yeah.
Eric from
Richards.
Hammered?
Yeah.
What does he say about that one tracking wise?
He said it tracks really well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, and shout out to Justin Marshall. We had him on the listener roundtable.
Yeah.
He had his first event this past weekend, and it didn't turn out good. But don't worry, buddy. Keep your head up. You get there, brother. Yeah, they had crappy weather out there because we were on
what lake was that on?
Somewhere in Ohio, I think.
Okay.
Because that was the Michigan-Ohio Kayak Anglers event, I believe it was. Because me and Jacob were on the way home, and we're talking, and I'm driving, he's scrolling through Instagram, and he's like, "Ooh," and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, Justin didn't have a good day on the water," because I saw like he was out pre-fishing and stuff, and I commented on one of his posts. I was like, "Get out there, man. Get after it. Good luck." All that stuff. And then Jacob's like, "Yeah, it wasn't good." And I'm like, "Man, like I was really hoping that, like, I was, rooting for him." But I guess they had like some brutal conditions. So
interesting.
But keep your head up, brother. You'll get there, man.
One other shout out. I want to shout out to Cat Music. He, longtime listener to the podcast. He, I met him at a trade show.
Yeah. We've had many conversations. I've never met this guy.
No, he's an awesome guy. Anyway, he's looking to get a kayak.
Yeah.
And I think I told you he took the Jackson Coosa out.
Yeah.
And he wasn't that impressed for whatever reason. Like different strokes, different folks.
Right.
But he's looking to get into the Hobie Pro Angler. So I think the double. The one that seats two.
The tandem, right? Oh, that's right, because you said he wanted to take his wife out or something?
He's got daughters that fish.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, shout out to Kat.
Yeah, nice, dude.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember when you first met him, because you were like, "Hey, man, I was at this trade show." That was at McCormick Place, right?
No, it wasn't at McCormick. It was downtown.
Downtown Chicago. And you're like, "Yeah, I was talking to this guy." And I was like, "Hey, you listen to podcasts?" And I think he told you, "Yeah, right?"
Yeah.
And you were like, "Here, I do a podcast. Check it out."
Yeah.
And then that guy had a long drive home and listened to a bunch of episodes, right?
He did. Totally
so that's cool, man. Yeah, shout out to that dude. Yeah, I've never met you, but it's cool that you follow along, man.
Awesome.
But
well, I think we're at the end of another one, bro.
Well, I'll wrap it up then.
You got it.
I'll keep you up. So you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, at paddle, the letter N, and Finn. You got a question, comment, want to hear about a topic, you can email us at paddle, the letter N, and Finn at gmail.com. All the Rocktown demo days will be listed in the description. So if you guys want to come out and participate in a demo day, the first one is going to be May 5th. If any of those dates don't work, you can contact the shop. They'll set you up to get out on the water and demo a boat. What else do we got? Follow along on TourneyX. You can go to the Paddle and Fin website. That's paddle, the letter N, and fin.com. Visit the store, t-shirts, hoodies, all that good stuff. You want some swag. We just got a new stock of Paddle and Fin decals in, so if you guys want some stickers, message us, send us an email, hit us up on the social, and we'll get it out to you. If you're new to the podcast, new episodes air every Tuesday. YouTube videos, and that's youtube.com/paddle and fin. New YouTube videos every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. So
Ooh, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, buddy.
So if you see the listenership kind of drop this week, you know exactly why that was.
No, I think it's going to get a huge boost because I think the title of this one's going to be The Epic Return with special guest. You know?
And it's the same guys.
And then everybody's going to be like, these jerks.
What a letdown.
Yeah,
clickbait.
Yeah, clickbait, jerks. So, yeah.
Well, it was good chatting with you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Same here, man. Yeah, glad to have you back. Till next time, guys, tight lines and smooth paddling.